Okay, first of all, big thank you to Cynthia and Arnold Welden. This is their video. Arnold's actually up here, and they were kind enough to share it with us so that we can break it down today and yeah, go over what happened at the 2014 INBF Muscle Mayhem overall for the pro card. We have Arnold, who, man, okay, like this guy was so banged up throughout his whole prep that I'm sure many points along the way he was probably considering throwing in the towel, but he Jimmy rigged it. A lot of BFR, a lot of just like getting after it, and man, like he is an incredible bodybuilder. I mean, you can see the level of muscularity, as much as you know, I'm going to talk about how he was the smaller frame guy here. Like, he's not exactly a smaller frame dude. Like, you would notice this dude at your gym, not just because of the shreds, but because he takes up quite a bit of space. We have Antonnio Mitchell here, who, I mean, come on, man. Like, homeboy brings the beef. Like this is insane. These are like damn near like NPC national level like size, along with like fullness and like roundness. And the dude's an athlete, man. Like, he gets down. Like, this stuff you see here is just an everyday occurrence for my boy. And then we have Jeff, who Jeff Nippard, who most of you guys are familiar with. He's done a lot over the last few years in regards to changing the landscape, in regards to how especially the layperson views and appreciates the scientific literature. So, but also he is a bodybuilder with a lot of game, not just like pretty good for a guy who, you know, nerds out. Like, this dude, honestly, he has like genetics, I'd say, as good as anybody on the tested side, on the untested side. If you ever wondered what like a drug-free Flex Lewis would look like, look at Jeff Nippard. So this one's going to be dope to break down, because all three of these guys are bodybuilders that I personally admire quite a bit, and doing the once over before I actually decided to, you know, break down the film, just it got me going, man. Like, they all had their unique stories going into this show, and they put on quite a show. So without further ado, let's break this down, and let me introduce you to these three gentlemen. Okay, here we go. We have Jeff Nippard, winner of the lightweights. We have Arnold Welden in the middle. He was the winner of the middleweights. And then we have Antonnio Valentino, winner of the heavyweights. All right, you know, before we get rolling with this, I think a very important point to make here. They're all about the same height, which, okay, so still too often to this day, I will hear people speak about what their body weight goal is because of said height, right? Because I'm this tall, I should probably be in this weight class. No, you leave that thing in the oven until it's ready. Remember, subjective sport. No one cares if your stat sheet look good if you don't look the part. All right, I think these guys are actually pretty well settled. Front relax, remember, most important pose, first impression pose. Of course, this is the overall. The judges have seen them in their respective classes. However, as much as you can kind of like predict in your mind like what they might look like next to each other, what this person brings, it's completely different when you have them right there next to each other. So what do I see? I see two apples and an orange in a way, right? Because both Jeff and Antonnio, they just have these big, thick, skeletal structures. I was almost going to say mesomorphic, but that's going to be a can of worms if I officially make that statement. But yes, they have these big rib cages. They have these, you know, thick elbows, thick wrists, thick knees. Small waistline too, which just makes him that much more difficult to deal with. However, look, bigger skeletal structure does mean more muscle, but in the case of these two, because you might have more muscle because of your skeletal structure, but muscle belly shape, like they both have that. Like every muscle on them like took the scenic route to its insertion point. That's hard to deal with. However, you look at Arnold in the middle, and he's the guy with like that sartorius that they can probably see from the nosebleeds. The sartorius is that muscle that's coming down from the hip, attaching right inside of the knee. When that thing's out, you know that person died it down. So, okay, we have these two muscle belly freaks. However, we have a very, very conditioned guy in the middle. Is it going to be enough, right? Is it going to be enough? Let's see. All right. Man, it wasn't impressive overall. Impressive. Again, they're all about the same height, different weight classes, and they all did really well. So again, I can't say that enough. Make a note of that. Okay, here on the side poses is where you can see who is the thickest individual. That's definitely Antonnio. You can tell why he is the heavyweight, right? I mean, the man looks bulletproof. I see you, Antonnio. That man looks bulletproof. Like this is something else. Jeff, again, thick dude, thick dude, but you can definitely tell that Antonio's just carries more muscle mass on him. Look at Arnold in the middle, right? Like he is kind of cheating over, and this is why posing is so important. He doesn't have the rib cage that Antonnio has, but he's cheating this over. All right. Oh my God, look at Jeff. Like you would think that, like he needs a helmet. He needs a helmet because like I feel unsafe with those shoulders around my head. Okay, Jeff is definitely the thicker back. We have Antonnio with the wider lats in the division, right? So each back kind of has something. So Arnold is lean. He is lean, but I'll tell you this much: like Jeff is so muscular that even though he's a step behind in regards to leanness, he has no soft spots. So he is, at this point, Jeff, and this is again early in the symmetry round, Jeff is trailing Antonnio by a bit in regards to muscularity, just by a tad. And the same thing next to Arnold in regards to conditioning. However, I'd say that Jeff probably has the best symmetry in the group because and I think where this really comes off is going to be in his lower body because his femurs are shorter than Antonio's, so it's a lot easier for him to get that that look, that sweep that we all want. And that's one of the reasons in our last video I really wanted to make a note of the fact that Caleb Inez, the tall heavyweight, had some really sweepy quads despite the fact that he was a taller individual. So right now, Jeff, remember, muscularity, symmetry, conditioning. Jeff is a notch behind Antonnio when it comes to muscularity, a notch behind Arnold when it comes to conditioning, but he is probably the most symmetrical. And I don't think the conditioning that Welden, Arnold in the middle has is going to be enough to make up for the muscularity discrepancy here. So they want Jeff in the middle, a good sign, but also, I don't know if you've noticed, physiques look a little bit different depending on where they're at. And part of the head judge, his job, in this case, Vic right here, he's asking around too, like, what do you want to see? It's just making sure that all the judges get everything that they want before they make a final decision. So one of the reasons that, okay, yeah, it's 3 people, but still worth swapping around. Yeah, that front double bicep. Jeff is just so symmetrical head to toe. However, I'll tell you what, like certain physiques kind of fade as they go. Certain physiques get better as they go. So they're really going to work these guys to make sure they got the right guy. But as of right now, again, we have Jeff second place symmetry, second place second place conditioning, second place muscularity, and probably the most symmetrical guy here. And again, symmetry, the most objective of the criteria, just means like, hey, everything flows. It's a nice little song you playing there with your physique. But I mean, shoot, look at Antonio's lats. His serratus, his lats. Again, this, like, what is that? You saw him press, right? So no surprise there. One thing I really want you guys to make a note of is Arnold is getting the most out of his physique. Look how turned over he is. Like, Jeff would really benefit from turning over a little bit more on his side poses. Again, to make himself look a little bit thicker, because despite the fact that, yeah, he is big framed, he's usually going to be one of the shorter guys. So, yeah, I guess making yourself a little bit more, as wide as you can on those side poses is something that I think a lot of folks overlook. But Arnold really has that down. Again, if you are going to compete at some point, I would definitely say pay attention to what Arnold's doing, because he's getting the most out of his poses. But not only that, he's also setting up quickly, which is good, because, hey, you're the first guy judges look at, they scan over here, and then they look back at you, so you get more total looks. All right, this is the most important pose outside of the front relax in natural bodybuilding. Ooh, I mean, Jeff is just so thick that even though Arnold's a little bit leaner, he looks just as hard head to toe. Antonio's got the wider back here. And man, had he just been a little bit more conditioned, I think, like this would have played out a bit differently. One thing to make a note of is, as much as I talk about Arnold's posing just being really on point, Antonnio was probably the last guy to be on stage. So he was out there with his division, did his routine, did all that, and then, yeah, they give him a little break, but then, like, you have to go back up, like, I wouldn't say almost immediately, but definitely sooner than the other guys. So he's maybe not as fresh. So his physique is looking better, but you can kind of tell, yeah, he's getting a little gassed simply because, how much he had to do in a relatively short amount of time. Oh, Jeff really hits that side pose really well from this side. Again, everyone's sides are a little bit different. It's still close. It's still close. It's one of those where, like, what do you like, right? Like, Jeff and Antonnio are just head to head here. Again, Arnold a sleeper, he's doing everything right. All the fundamentals, he's got those in place, and judges love to see that. They love to see, like, hey, like, you put in work in regards to the diet, the posing, and you're just up there poised, looking like a pro, because remember, this is for a pro card. However, sometimes, again, like I said, Antonnio and Jeff, they are like the two apples in the group, and then you have Arnold, who's like the orange in this case. Sometimes if you are kind of the odd man out, like I've had it happen before, where there's no weight classes, right? And there's a bunch of lightweights and just a few heavyweights. Sometimes the heavyweights can be overlooked because just inherently it looks like you did something wrong, despite the fact that, you're still a pretty damn good bodybuilder. So again, you have two, not just muscularity freaks, but like muscle belly freaks. And then you have Arnold, who is smaller framed and more conditioned. You know what? It's close. It is close. Some of these poses just make me realize just how overpowering Antonnio really is, like, especially up top. And he's got some good separation. Even though he could have gone a little bit off those legs, he has all the lines. He's got a thick sartorius. Look at his sartorius relative to Arnold's sartorius, which, again, bigger frame is going to produce bigger muscles. And you know what? This is one of those cases, I think it might be close enough between Antonnio and Jeff to the point where calves might matter, right? Especially when it comes to overall symmetry. As much as we laugh about calves not necessarily mattering a whole lot, this is one of those cases where it's close enough that it might. You can see why that would be the case. Ab thigh pose, again, it's a symmetry shot. It's a symmetry shot, and you can really see it, especially in Jeff. Like, his lats bubble out, his arms look like they're swallowing up his head. Small little waist, these big old legs. At least in this frame, that really, really shows. Okay, fan favorite time. Let's get these boys into some most muscular shots. Oh no, okay, we're going out of sequence. All right. So this is probably because the judges want to see the back shots. And I imagine it's because Antonio's back is just so wide and overpowering that it's like, do we really not want to give it to the guy with the biggest back in the group? Jeff's is thick, but especially in this like just relaxed pose, Antonio's is thicker. Okay, they want that back double bicep one more time. These are the final like closing statements on this one. Man, Jeff is, it's that tightness. Look at that glute area. Like you really can't pinch anything on Jeff. Antonio has a little layer there. We worked together actually a few years later, and we got him in better shape than this. And both Antonio and Jeff just, they go as far as they like, to be honest. Look at Arnold, like jumping straight into that pose. Like he's practiced. No wasted motion. It's like, boom, I'm here. And once he's there, he's like art. Like doesn't move. He's a statue. So yeah, they're all out of sequence here. I think at this point, it's a lot of poses that certain judges in the group want to see to make sure, because my guys are wasted. Hey, they're out there having fun, but they're wasted. This is as tough as any workout. The DOMs that you get, like the soreness that you get, especially in your quads, especially like in the middle of your quads, the days after, just lingers. All right. You know what? And as much as I've said before, most musculars maybe don't matter as much as we would like, right? They're crowd favorite poses. This is one of those times where it might, just like the calves, where it might play a vital role in who's winning. Although again, I think even after seeing all this, it's like, okay, Antonio, the most muscular, but you know, Jeff has the silver medal there. Silver medal when it comes to conditioning, slide lead there by Arnold. And then the most symmetrical, the guy that looks like a freaking trophy, is Jeff here. He also poses in a way where, like, instead of focusing on showcasing like muscularity, he poses to make himself look as symmetrical as possible. And you can really see it in his ab thigh poses. All right. Okay, we get to those most musculars, because again, I do think they will matter in this circumstance. Okay, hands on hips. Let's see. All right, man, Antonio looks like he's being swallowed up by his own muscularity. Jeff took a very pretty and symmetrical version of the hands on hips. I really like the, hey, let's have this side here be the pretty side, and then this side here just kind of be grotesque and like roll over. Arnold is really getting a lot out of this pose. Delts, right? The waist tapers, the legs flare out. He did a really good job positioning himself here. Like his symmetry isn't as good as Antonio's, but he looks more symmetrical in this pose. Okay, and then you guys are going to see something here. This is one of the reasons that, again, like this is in practice. You're going to see why when it comes time for crab, is like I'd rather hit this hand's clasp most muscular as opposed to the crab most muscular, because again, it looks good in selfies, looks good for like maybe photo shoots, right? Like that sort of deal, but it just doesn't really do all that well on stage. Look at Arnold, big old delts, ties into that waist, and then the quads flare out. Whereas we know for sure Antonio is just out of hand when it comes to his upper body muscularity. We know that Jeff has muscle on muscle, but you can't see it. You can't see it. Like it's almost like Arnold's winning the shot when he shouldn't be, right? This would be a great video to just pose along to. All right, we have the pose down. Pose down does not matter. At this point, they're just relaying over the scores over to the EMC. But I'll tell you what, man, you get caught up in it. And you are, you get after it, you want those cheers to be for you, whoever was there for you, you want them to like really be about it. You want to hit poses that maybe aren't part of the standard poses, much like Jeff is right here, but they really showcase your physique. So yeah, it's again, it's they all know. I'm sure all of these guys know that this doesn't really matter. These aren't the final statements, like the scores are in, but yeah, you kind of forget about it while you're up there, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Just do what you like for a minute or so. Okay, look at the sportsmanship. All these guys brought it, man. It's hard to make it up into this overall. It's a hard show. All right, let's listen up. Whew.
All right.
Here we go.
The brand new shiny WNBF Pro card goes to number 31.
There we go. I think Antonnio ended up winning his pro card soon afterwards, I believe. I don't think Antonnio did a few years later. He was active, but a lot of these guys they haven't been up there in years. Hopefully this inspires him to do it much in the way that they are inspiring us. But yeah, man, Jeff's got some game. Smart dude. It's really just changed, especially the sciencey part of fitness. Like he's taken it to a whole new level. But dude's got some game. All these guys got some game. So anyhow, hopefully you guys found that interesting, fun. The breakdown was useful to you guys. Again, if you are competing, this is right about the average amount of time, especially if you are competing in a drug-free show, that you should expect to be up there. So it's going to be a great one to pose along to. So yeah, hey, so far I'm enjoying these. I know it's extra niche, right? We're already a niche channel, but these are just too much fun to break down, and especially given the fact that I am competing this year, boy, does it get the juices flowing. Yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. I have a really dope one coming up next.